All right, folks, buckle up. We're diving into the world of darkness, and trust me, you'll want some garlic for this one. We're talking vampire clans, the real deal, based on this, let's call it a gentleman's guide to the supernatural. And let me tell you, it's got some stories that would make even Dracula think twice.
It's a world where history is told by the survivors, or perhaps the victors. And those stories, they tend to be as twisted as the creatures they describe.
No kidding. So where do we even start? This guide is more like a puzzle box of whispers and rumors.
Well, we could start with the clan that seems to predate most others, at least according to this guide, the Assamites. They might hold the key to unraveling this whole tangled web.
The Assamites, yeah, those are the classic assassin types, right? Always lurking in the shadows.
A reputation they've honed over centuries. They were once, if you can believe it, the honorable judges of their kind. But a curse changed everything, turning them into the vampire's vampire.
A curse, huh? Okay, now you've got my attention. What kind of curse turns a whole clan into the boogeymen of the night?
The guide hints at a fall from grace. Imagine these warriors, drunk on their own authority, facing a reckoning, specifically from the Tremere, the warlocks. They cursed the Assamites, preventing them from, and I quote, devouring the heart's blood of their enemies.
Whoa, talk about adding insult to injury. Also, drinking heart's blood sounds messy, but kind of badass in a horrifying kind of way. Why is that detail so important, though?
It speaks to their very nature. See, for the Assamites, blood isn't just sustenance, it's power. There's even mention of a ritual, blood magic, that was supposed to break this curse. But instead of freedom, it left them caught between their ancient ways and the encroaching influence of modern religions.
Yeah, he mentioned something about Islam, right? Talk about a culture clash.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the historical footnote. It speaks to their struggle for identity, for belonging, in a world that's constantly shifting beneath their feet.
So, are they misunderstood heroes then? Or are they as ruthless as everyone whispers?
Ah, that, my friend, is the million-dollar question. Like any good mystery, the truth likely lies somewhere in the shadows between the lines.
Well said. And speaking of shadows, he mentions the Bali. Even our narrators seemed a little spooked by those guys. What's their deal?
The Bali. If the Assamites are the vampires, then the Balis are the boogeymen of vampire lore. Whispered about, rarely seen, even their origins are shrouded in darkness.
So they're like the ultimate vampire legend.
Our source presents them as cautionary tales, nightmares whispered to keep young vampires in line. But read between the lines. There are hints of ancient pacts, of human sacrifices, a hunger for power that rivals even the most ambitious kindred.
Don't forget those wells. Shudder, the ones filled with. Yeah, let's just say I'm glad I'm not a plumber in this world.
Gruesome, yes. But symbolic, too. Those wells, they represent a connection to something primal, something that predates the world as we know it. It plays on our deepest fears, doesn't it?
Big time. And to make things even creepier, there are these three figures mentioned. Nurgle, Moloch, and then a third one he couldn't even bring himself to name. What's up with those three?
Each one, if the stories are to be believed, represents a different aspect of unchecked ambition. Nurgle, seeking power through plague and sacrifice, a perversion of life itself. Moloch, the puppet master, whispering poison into the ears of the powerful. And the third, well, that mystery just adds another layer to their already unsettling reputation.
Okay, we're 2 for 2 on the creepy vampire clan scale. But where do the Cappadocians, or should I say the Giovanni, fit into this family tree?
Ah, the Cappadocians and the Giovanni. A tale of ambition, betrayal, and the ultimate theft one clan's legacy devoured whole by another. It all starts with Cappadocius, a figure obsessed with the mysteries of death.
So instead of collecting stamps, he collected death certificates.
In a way, he sought to understand the precise moment the soul departs the body, the secrets hidden within that transition. He embraced others who walked a similar path, those drawn to what he called the Road of Bones. And their tool for this exploration, the discipline of mortis, a precursor to the necromantic magic practiced by the Giovanni.
Ah, there's that connection. So how do we go from scholarly Cappadocians to the power-hungry Giovanni we know and fear?
Tragedy, my friend. Cappadocius, driven by disturbing visions, became convinced his clan had strayed from his true path. What followed was a horrifying purge, the great entombment, where he entombed those he deemed unworthy. Not exactly a winning leadership strategy.
Yeah, that's a fireable offense in most circles.
This event decimated the Cappadocians, leaving them vulnerable to Augustus Giovanni, a vampire with ambition to spare. Whether he saw an opportunity or engineered one is debatable, but the result was the same: the systematic dismantling of the Cappadocians and the rise of the Giovanni.
Augustus sounds like he really understood the phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Indeed. And the Giovanni weren't content with simply inheriting the Cappadocians' knowledge. They took their fascination with death and cranked it up to 11.
Well, the guide described them as being obsessed with this whole endless night thing. Care to elaborate on what that actually means? Because it doesn't sound pleasant for us daylight-loving folks.
Imagine a world where the veil between the living and the dead is shattered, where spirits roam free at the Giovanni's beck and call. That's their endgame. Chilling, isn't it?
Okay, I'm officially creeped out. But before we take a breather, let's talk about a clan that's as comfortable in a boardroom as they are in a crypt. The Lasombra.
Ah, the keepers of the night. Masters of manipulation, literally and figuratively. They don't just hide in the darkness, they command it. Our source even claims they can make other vampires fear the dark.
Okay, that's just messed up. It's like being a fish afraid of water. What's their secret? How did they get so powerful?
It's more than just shadow play. They're strategists, always playing the long game. They hold sway in every major vampire sect. The Camarilla, the Sabbat, even the Anarchs.
So they're playing both sides. Talk about hedging your bets.
Precisely. They've mastered the art of benefiting, no matter who comes out on top. And this isn't a new trick. The source material suggests they were pulling the same strings back in the Dark Ages, using institutions like the Catholic Church to further their own agendas.
Wow. If vampires had a most likely to succeed award, the Lasombra would be taking it home every year. But even they had to answer to their founder, right? What can you tell us about this mysterious figure, also known as Lasombra?
His story revolves around the abyss. And I'm not talking about some fiery underworld. This was something far more unsettling, a primordial void, the embodiment of nothingness. He was obsessed with it.
Well, we went from zero to existential crisis real quick. What happened? Did he try to become the void?
There are hints he spent years wandering the ocean floor, immersing himself in the deepest, darkest corners of the world. And when he returned, he was changed. More powerful, yes, but also more alien, less recognizable as the vampire he once was.
Okay, that's one way to get your clan's attention. So being masters of control and all, the Lasombra were totally cool with their founder going full-on cosmic horror, right?
Even the best-laid plans of immortal overlords can go awry. It seems the Lasombra, for all their love of order, couldn't escape their own children's rebellion. In fact, some whispers suggest they were instrumental in orchestrating the Anarch Revolt, a move that directly led to the diablerie of their founder.
Wait, hold up. So they helped create the very chaos they now claim to keep in check. That's next-level manipulation.
It makes you question everything you think you know about them, doesn't it?
For sure. Speaking of questioning everything, what about the Malkavians? They're described as the clan of the mad, but our source also hints that there's more to their madness than meets the eye.
Ah, the Malkavians. A clan whose very nature defies categorization. To call them merely mad is to miss the point entirely. They are a kaleidoscope of perspectives, each individual a shard reflecting a different facet of reality, or perhaps unreality.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But how can a clan of, well, let's be honest, raving lunatics be a major player in this world?
The guide mentions something called the Madness Network, a kind of telepathic link that connects them all. It's through this network and their unique insights that they become invaluable advisors, spies, even seers.
Wait, seers? Like, they can see the future.
Not always the future, but they have an uncanny knack for perceiving the truths hidden beneath the surface. They see the patterns others miss, the connections that elude even the most ancient vampires. It's as if their madness allows them to glimpse the true shape of things, unfiltered by the illusions we create for ourselves.
So they're like the crazy uncles of the vampire world, spouting cryptic warnings that everyone ignores until it's too late.
A colorful analogy, but not entirely inaccurate. And remember, the Malkavians are one of the founding clans of the Camarilla. They might be unpredictable, but they are also undeniably powerful.
I guess you can't have a good conspiracy without a little chaos thrown in.
Speaking of unpredictable, what about the Ravnos? They've always struck me as the trickster gods of this whole vampire scene. The Ravnos. Masters of illusion, mischief, and survival. Our source paints them as a clan forever on the run, haunted by a reputation for deceit and betrayal. A reputation, I might add, not entirely unearned.
Okay, but it sounds like they've also been dealt a pretty bad hand over the centuries. What gives?
Theirs is a story of being the victims of their own legend. Targeted, hunted, punished for crimes they may or may not have committed. This constant persecution has forged a fierce, almost frightening loyalty within the clan. A loyalty that manifests in something the guide calls the treatment.
The treatment. Yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant.
It's their way of balancing the scales, you see. Imagine a city's infrastructure collapsing overnight, organized crime running rampant, the masquerade crumbling, all orchestrated by a handful of vengeful Ravnos.
Yeesh, talk about a bad hair day. So they're like a clan-sized mafia, but with a supernatural edge.
Perhaps. But they're also artists of chaos, using their illusions to manipulate mortals, sowing discord for their own amusement. It's all a game to them, a grand, elaborate performance.
And I'm guessing they always have a few tricks up their sleeves.
Indeed. Never underestimate a Ravnos' capacity for deception or their talent for turning a situation to their advantage.
Got it. Trust no one, especially not a charming stranger with a twinkle in their eye. Speaking of things that go bump in the night, our guide's description of the Simishi was downright chilling.
Ah, the fiends. Even the name evokes a sense of unease, doesn't it? Gothic castles, flesh-warping horrors, a disdain for the lines we draw between beauty and monstrosity. They embody those aspects of the vampiric condition that most repulse us.
No kidding. They make the rest of the clans look downright cuddly. What's their deal with, turning everything into a grotesque flesh sculpture?
To the Tsimis, the flesh isn't a cage, but a canvas. They see beauty in the grotesque, power in transcending the limitations of the physical form. It's a worldview that's both disturbing and strangely compelling.
It's like they're artists, but with a really, really twisted sense of aesthetics.
Perhaps. But their mastery of the flesh is undeniable. This mastery, coupled with their ancient traditions and fierce territoriality, makes them a force to be reckoned with.
And let's not forget their castles. Those things sound like they belong in a horror movie marathon.
Those fortresses, as they call them, are more than just dwellings. They are extensions of the Simis themselves, expressions of their power, their history, and their utterly alien aesthetics, meant to intimidate and unsettle.
Mission accomplished. Just thinking about spending a night in one of those places gives me the creeps.
Fear is a powerful tool, one that the Timis wields with unsettling expertise. Speaking of powerful tools, our guide also mentioned the followers of Set, a clan that takes ambition to a whole new level.
The Setites. They're like the vampire equivalent of those ancient cults you read about in history books, right?
In a way, yes. They are bound by a shared faith, a devotion to the ancient Egyptian god Set. They see themselves as blessed, not cursed, chosen to serve a higher purpose.
And that purpose is?
Global domination, the resurrection of their god. They believe Set will rise again, ushering in an era where they rule supreme, and they are nothing if not patient, content to play the long game, manipulating mortals and kindred alike, spreading their influence like a subtle poison.
Okay, I'll admit the whole mysterious manipulative cult thing is a classic for a reason. What about their powers, though? Are they as impressive as their ambition?
They are masters of presence and manipulation, able to sway emotions, cloud minds, even take on the serpentine form of their guide. They're also collectors of secrets, weavers of webs, always working behind the scenes to advance their own agenda.
So if you need a favor in the world of darkness, the Setites are the ones to call. But be prepared to pay a hefty price.
Precisely. To deal with the Setite is to make a deal with the devil himself. You might get what you want, but it will always cost you more than you bargained for. And the Setites are content to wait. Centuries, millennia. Those are just numbers to them. They understand that true power. It's a slow burn.
Makes you wonder if they meditate or something. But you know who doesn't seem big on patience? The Tremere. Those ambitious warlocks who basically said, nah, we'll take the express lane to being a vampire. Thanks.
The Tremere. A case study in ambition, wouldn't you say? Their whole story is about bending the world to their will, consequences be damned.
Which makes you wonder, what drives a group of already powerful mages to not just become vampires, but to become, like, the most ruthlessly ambitious vampires out there?
Their origin story is one of, well, usurpation, really. They engineered their own embrace, stealing the secrets of vampirism instead of receiving it through tradition. It's no wonder they made some enemies along the way.
Yeah, like that whole war with the Timis. And let's be real, you don't want to be on the Tzimisis' bad side. But even worse, their founder, Tremere himself, turning into some kind of eldritch horror show. You'd think a bunch of mages would read the fine print on that spell, right?
Even the most calculated ambition can have unintended consequences. Diablerie, consuming another vampire's soul. It's potent magic with potentially devastating consequences. And in Tremere's case, well, let's just say he learned that the hard way.
Okay, so they're powerful, no doubt, but maybe also a cautionary tale. Then again, haven't we seen that with pretty much every clan so far? Like, it's an occupational hazard in the world of darkness. But what makes the Tremere uniquely dangerous aside from, the blood magic and all that.
It's their mastery of thaumaturgy. It's not just about raw power like some disciplines.
Yeah.
It's about control. Control over the elements, spirits,
Yeah.
even the very forces of life and death.
Right. That whole supernatural toolbox you were talking about earlier. And they don't just have these tools, they seem to use them everywhere. It's like they wrote the book on climbing the vampire social ladder.
They're masters of leverage. They offer their services to other clans, manipulating events from the shadows, always working to strengthen their position within the Camarilla. They understand that true power. Well, it's often less about brute force and more about influence. All right. Impressed and terrified. That's where I'm at right now. So we've got the Tremere. Ambitious, powerful, and maybe a tad too comfortable playing with forces they don't quite understand, which I guess brings us to our last clan, the Golconda. These guys are like the opposite of the Tremere. They vanished completely, leaving only rumors and legends. It's almost like they understand something about power that the other clans don't. The Golconda, the masters of absence, of letting go. It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? Their very disappearance speaks volumes. Perhaps they realize that true power lies not in holding on, but in letting go, in becoming something more.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. And maybe a good place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground, ancient bloodlines, shadowy figures, whispers of power, but we've only just scratched the surface. Okay, so we're back, and let's be real. We've just scratched the surface of this whole vampire clan thing. It's like opening a crypt and finding, well, more crypts. Endless mystery.
And just when you think you've got a handle on it, bam! A clan like the Golconda vanishes into thin air. It really makes you question what you think you know about power, doesn't it?
For real, like what's more powerful than being completely off the grid, completely in control of your own narrative? The other clans could learn a thing or two. Speaking of which, the Tremere, those ambitious warlocks turned vampires, they definitely seem to be writing their own story.
Ambition is a powerful motivator. But as we've seen, it can also be a dangerous game. The Tremere's rise to power was paved with, let's just say, a few questionable decisions.
Yeah, making enemies with the Tzimis, not exactly a recipe for a long and happy on life. And then there's the whole Tremere turning into a monster thing. You'd think they would have seen that coming, right?
It seems even the most skilled practitioners can underestimate the forces they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Diablerie, consuming another vampire's soul. It's a risky proposition at best.
All right, so maybe they're not the best role models. Then again, we've seen how power can be a double-edged sword with every clan we've discussed. So, final thoughts on the Tremere. Powerful, yes, but maybe with a touch of be careful what you wish for.
Perhaps. But their mastery of thaumaturgy is undeniable. It's a level of control that most kindred can only dream of.
Right, that whole supernatural toolbox thing. Okay, so on one hand, we've got the Tremere, ambitious, power-hungry, maybe a little too eager to mess with forces they don't fully understand. And on the other hand, we've got the Golconda, who disappear completely, becoming almost mythical in their absence.
It's a fascinating contrast, isn't it? The Tremere, striving to shape the world in their image, and the Golconda, embracing the shadows, becoming one with the mysteries they seek to unravel.
It makes you wonder what they know that we don't. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the real lesson here is that the more we learn about these creatures of the night, the more we realize how much we don't know.
There's always another secret lurking just beyond our grasp, another whisper in the dark. And perhaps that's what keeps us coming back for more.
Well said. So, until next time, folks, remember, keep your stakes sharp, your garlic close at hand, and most importantly, never stop questioning what goes bump in the night.